Hello everybody, at least I hope you can hear me. I know I sometimes have technical problems and it's been a minute since I did this and I'm a forgetful creature. So I see we got Lady Nim and Pendrake TG and Kieran Nico and Quindy LaRue, sorry I said your name wrong, and a new person, Butts1000. And you've done both the kits. Well, thanks for showing up. I don't always do kit related stuff. I have done in the past, so I recommend that you look out for Reaper's YouTube channel because they have an archive of all the streams on there, and I think they're organized by, hi, I'm Tertia. And Pendrake confirms you guys can hear. So if you go to Reaper's YouTube channel, they have a playlist for each of the programs, and I have a couple of programs where I did some experiments with washes, like what happens if you change up the colors and you don't just use a typical color on washes, and I use the skeletons from the kit. And I've done a series of 3 so far on dry brushing, testing different kinds of brushes to see if you can get a different result on a smooth textured thing or a stone textured thing. I still want to do a wood one, I think. So I definitely do stuff related to the kit, but I also just kind of talk about general painting things and stuff like that. I am thinking about, and I didn't bring it over with me. Hold on, give me just one sec. Well, nope, I can't switch the view for a minute. I'll switch the view to, there's a little preview of what we're going to talk about today, which is bases again. Making a lot of noise. All right, so I will show you the other thing that was under there in a minute. So this is something that Reaper's recently put out, which is we're calling them quick paint sets, and this is only the first one. There may already be one in the hopper, or however they say that. Oh, I see my sound cord is being impolite. So these are not the same kind of detail as in the Learn to Paint kits, but it's kind of like if you wanted more, just follow along with the steps, that's what these are. So it doesn't explain how to do dry brushing and how to do washing or how to do layering, but it has a color set for these guys right there, and I didn't bring over the actual figures, which I do have over there on my shelf. And then you can paint, there's like 6 of them in the blister, and then these paints. And I was thinking that I would do this on the show. But I probably want to give people some warning, so I probably wouldn't do it next week, but maybe the week after that might be fun. I think we're finally holidays and stuff, although I guess St. Patrick's Day is coming up. But did I already talk about painting green once? I feel like I talked about painting green, but maybe that was a blog post. David Weir is here. Hello. Butts1000 mostly mentioned the kits because you love them so much. Wanted to say thanks. Well, thank you. I'm glad that you like them. I'm always happy to hear that. I'm always excited when I see people post them online, and they almost always look exactly like what I did, which is exciting because that means people are getting it and are hopefully happy. But I thought I might run through this. I mean, I'm not going to be able to do all 6 goblins on the show, but run through these goblins, and I tried to paint them in a very similar color scheme to the ones I used. I painted ones for the Bones 5 Kickstarter a couple years back, and I tried to kind of do like the tabletop version of that color scheme. So I will probably put up on social media to kind of announce in advance. So I missed last week. I missed seeing you guys, but the reason I missed is I was doing a 3-day online oil painting class. So I'm finding that going back and being a student and learning helps me be a better teacher as well as a student. And this one was, so the last one I had done was last year in June, I think. And various things were happening, it's the 20,000s, everything's great, or 2020s. We're all doing great. So I kind of got in a slump, and I wasn't very happy after the last workshop that I did. But I'm glad that I was nervous about it, but I came back, and I'm going to show you. I have censored it slightly due to Twitch terms of service. So we'll just call that Twitch terms of service pink. So this is what I did. And what's funny is the painter that I studied with is actually local, and I have taken local classes with him, but then he started doing online stuff, much like the rest of us, after events transpired. So I hope to study with him again locally. This last class gave me some interesting thoughts on the difference between, doing online stuff or stuff from videos and doing stuff where someone is right there and talking to you about it. Well, actually, I'll just get it back for just a minute. You can see that the pink in the painting, there are pinks in the painting that are really not far different from the color of this Post-it note. He paints with very vibrant colors. And that's one of the things that is inspiring across all kinds of art forms is, so we use photographs, and he uses a photograph, but the colors in his photograph, like the paintings never match the photograph. Sometimes not even very close. And he doesn't care. Like, he's partially colorblind. His thing is, you're using the photograph or a live model for, where things are, the proportions, and where light and shadow is. But then your goal is make a nice painting. And I would say the same for people painting miniatures. We sometimes get really caught up on, is this realistic? Like, often when I give people feedback after contests and they're not happy with their results, and I'm like, well, you need way more contrast, or you need to do lining. And they're like, well, I don't think that's realistic. And it's like, okay, first of all, it is more realistic than you think, which I have like 17 articles on my blog talking about that. But also, does it matter? You're not making a person, you're making a visual object. Like, even if you don't want to call it art, if you don't want to think of mini painting as art, I'm down with that. Art has some weird stuff in it, I understand. But it's a visual object. So even if you want to compare it to ads or movies or cartoons or any other things that make people want to look at them, you've got to do the same things to make people want to look at your miniatures. So anyway, that's, I guess, enough of a PSA. We'll go to the combo view, if I remember how to do it. There we go. So Reaper's Base Boss Kickstarter is on for another, I want to say 6 days. It said 7 days yesterday, so I assume 6 days. I have no idea what the time is when it ends. On a previous show, I painted these, and I started some of these, and I cut some stuff up. So I have some unfinished ones, so I thought I'd work on some of those and talk about basing and stuff. Not just in terms of these, but sort of general things. The article I'm thinking about writing for the blog, where I use some of this information, is I think I might call it Fix It in Post. Because one of the nice things about bases is if you aren't great at sculpting and you aren't great at base construction, you can sometimes fix a lot of that with paint. So let's see. Pendrick says you can paint some goblins green and some orange Irish goblins for St. Patrick's Day. Am I opening a can of worms with that? I think maybe. Let's see. Queenie's got a link up to Base Boss if you're interested in that. So most of the campaign, I believe, is to make different versions of like these things. So there's ones that are like for RPGs, for war games, for other stuff, and there's of course all different sizes to accommodate different sizes of creatures. And Reaper's current base selection doesn't cover all of the things, so I believe that the main point of the Kickstarter is to fill in some holes there. But they're also experimenting with this idea of the base inserts. So where's the blank one? So it's like this, and you stick it in here. Now, you can stick it on there before you paint, and I did have one I ended up doing that with because I cut out the bottom. So I cut out a portion of this one. So this part basically becomes the lower surface. But what most of us would probably rather do is you paint it separately like these, and you make all your mess there, and then you can just glue it onto this thing and not have to paint a black base. And then you have a nice sturdy plastic base that you never have to repaint or touch up. I mean, I should touch up the edges of the lava before I do that. I just go around there with black or red or something. And you glue it in and you're good to go. And they have a variety of sizes. Now, I'm not sure if they've changed how many of styles per size of base, because the styles per size of base does seem small, and I totally understand why people are asking for a bigger variety of that, and I hope Reaper listens to that. But I think first we have to convince them that this is a viable idea for them to get into more, for them to want to invest more resources in it. Kroniko says, a friend of mine is colorblind. I had to number his paints so that he didn't have to double check the shades all the time with his wife. Well, that was kind of you to do. And I've known of other painters who are colorblind who do a similar thing. Like they maybe label the ones they don't know, or they keep them in order, like the way you've numbered them, so that they know which ones are which. And there are ways to get around it. So if you have a situation like that and it's making you feel like you can't paint well, try. I mean, at least go ahead and try. Because you'd be surprised at what some people manage to do. And the same thing with if you have a tremor, there's a post on the Reaper forums, I think it's painting tips section, and it's pinned, so it's right up at the top. And he has a couple YouTube videos about devices that, like, he has severe tremors, so he has YouTube videos about devices that he's used, and then other people have piled in with suggestions for what they do. Because, I mean, one of the reasons I do this is one of my few talents in life is holding still, because, you know, getting me moving is a lot harder than making me hold still. So I do have some bracing tips for doing, like, fine detail and stuff, but hearing from someone who has a similar issue to you is always going to be more valuable than hearing from people like me. The same with the colorblind and stuff. I don't know that they're saying now that some people have 4 types of color receptors, 4 color receptors in their eyes instead of just 3, so they're quadrochromatic or something. I don't know. It's like they could see more colors than the average person with good color vision. So I don't think I have that, but I can see colors pretty well, like when I do those little color matching tests. And the more you paint and stuff, the better you'll get at that, regardless of whether you have issues seeing color or not. Because the other thing is, if you start studying art stuff, people will be all like, "Ooh, look at the purple in the shadow." Like, this was totally happening the weekend when we were doing the oil painting, and they're like, "Look at the touches of blue on that tree bark or whatever," and you're sitting there going, "Dude, it's brown, or it's gray, or it's whatever thing." As you look at stuff more and more and you push yourself to do things like that, and you're like, fine, you know what, I don't see the blue in the tree trunk, but I'm just going to put some in. Eventually you do start seeing it. Like, I remember sitting in art classes or watching videos going, you guys are making stuff up. I don't see any of these things. And I've started to see some of it now. And often what they're talking about is things get cooler and things get warmer. It's not necessarily a huge shift in color. It's just, if you look at someone and, they've got the hollows of their cheeks, it might look a little grayer or a little purple or a little bluer because it's a shadow that's moving away from the warm light or something. Pendrick says, Ron likes orange for goblins. St. Patrick's equals green. Irish flag is green, white, and orange. Thus, everyone can be happy. Well, I guess we'd have to put them on a snow base. And is anyone happy when there's snow in March? So we make almost everyone happy. Green Users says, my husband has color vision deficiency and he won a Sophie trophy. He did. And I think he used a strategy like that, didn't he? Julie, didn't he kind of line up because his problem is very unique. He has trouble seeing value, which I think the average colorblind person is actually better at seeing value than those of us with full color vision. So it can be an advantage to them in miniature painting because value is kind of your like base. This is how you get good contrast technique. There are other methods of contrast, but like that's kind of the one that most people screw up. So colorblind people often do better in that because they perceive changes in light and darkness a little more than the rest of us who are all distracted by the pretty colors, I guess. So, all right, so I'm going to paint some of these bases, but I'm also, since the cat's out of the bag on these, this is the secret project I've been working on, is those adventurer guys. Let's see, does it seem a little dark? No, I don't think so. So this is the elf wizard, and he's almost done, and Ron would really love if he was all the way done and I could take pictures of everybody. So I still need to do the hood, which I'm going to do the same blue of the, I don't know what all these medieval outfit names are. Overcoat, maybe? Robish thing. And then I need to do the base, obviously, so I thought I might kind of do some painting on that today with you guys. And then his hair, of course, which I'm wrestling with what to do with the hair, because originally I was thinking like kind of a light blonde like we did on the elf that I painted on stream for a while, like a kind of platinum blonde, cold blonde. But I'm wondering if I did more of like a blue black, I'd be able to work the lighting effect a bit better. So that was it. So Ron approached me about this project, and if you're not familiar with these, let's get these two out. I should have got sticky tape or something. So, okay, don't look at the screen for me here. I'm gonna do something with the camera to hopefully make it, because the downside of these document cameras is you can't look like things look like they're sideways to you, but then they don't look like they're sideways to me. So things that I really want to show you sideways, it's hard to do. So let's see. That didn't make any sense. Let's see if this works. No, because I have to figure out where I put it. Zoom out a little. So you can like angle the head of this thing so that I could get stuff upright. But then the problem is I need, let's see if I can make this stand here. And it's not tall enough. Hold on, I got a taller one. Technology, it giveth and it taketh away. And now it's too tall. Clearly I didn't think this all the way through. All right, so can we see him now? Let me zoom out more. Can I get him where you can see him? There he is. So if you look at the bases of these guys, they are made so that you can fit them together. I'm getting his wrong, I think. Yeah, I think it goes there. So that you can fit them together and they will stand as a party as if walking down a corridor in the dungeon. So where that little slot thing is on her base is, I think the cleric fits in there. I will return to regular view. Now, I didn't bring the cleric over because her Warhammer broke off in transit. And I am reluctant to touch the figure much at all until I've got like my final pictures and everything's cool for Ron. So probably next show I can show everybody off, but I've got the 3 of them here right now. Let's see if I can figure it out again. It's really not that hard to do. It's because I'm trying to do it. Yeah, because I'm trying to do it backwards for one thing. But so their bases slot together, and you get all 4 of them together. Now, what these figures are, in case anyone is wondering, is they are kind of teasers, samples for the next Bones Kickstarter that's going to be happening. Don't get dizzy. I'm going to move the camera back. I think it's not in a very ideal location. So they're being given out. You might get them when you make an order on the Reaper website. They're taking them to Adepticon, maybe some other conventions. And you won't know which one you're getting. So I think they're packaged in such a way that you can't see the contents. So it's kind of a collect a set thing. Now, I think they're all going to be in the Kickstarter, so I don't think people have to stress out about not getting them. But I'm not 100% sure. Let me catch up on chat, though. Green user said Bob figured out, sorted out his paints using mathematics, which is very cool. Pendrake suggests greasy black hair like Snape, then the hair near the spell can be showing some green. Yeah, that was my thought with, I kind of got distracted. So the challenge with these guys is Ron is all like, can you paint these guys? And I'm like, well, yes. And he's like, it'd be super cool if there was like, because they have like 2 light sources. What if there were lighting effects? And I'm like, well, okay, but you told me these guys are all being individuals. So which is more important to you, that they look good as individuals or that they look good, like that the light effect looks good? And that's because it's really hard to do both things. Like if you look at her, the level of contrast that I would normally use within an object, I guess let's say, like even the back of this cape. So the back of this cape, if there was no light effect or whatever, I would say this is not enough contrast. But that's because I had to save like the light tones for over here. And you can see it on the robe too. There's not enough shadow on this. Like, if there's no spell effect, there's not enough shadow on this side and there's not enough highlights on this side. Because we can't actually produce light unless you want to do LEDs or something like that. All we have is the values of colors, the light to dark values of colors. So you have to spread those out. You have to decide which is more important, selling the idea of this is emitting light or making the forms on the figure look good. And those are, you can't, it's not easy to do both. So that was my concern. I'm kind of trying to split the difference so the lighting effect's not going to be like super crazy in your face. Ooh, I like that. The Puzzle Party. Quantum Reveries. That's a great name for them. So I'm kind of trying to do a little both. I'm trying to paint them well enough that you can see the figures and they look okay as individuals, but also have some of that light effect. Because the halfling was the biggest problem, because he's behind all of the light effects. So if I were being, trying for a really dramatic effect, I would have to like just, you'd barely be able to see his face or anything else. So I was like, all right, Ron, I'll give it a shot, but I can't promise it's going to be amazing. And I'm still holding them too high, so I think I have my camera in the wrong place. We'll see when I get painting. So this is the human rogue. I do think they all work great as figures too, and I've enjoyed painting them. I think these are the kind of figures that I would recommend to people who are newer to painting, because they're not encrusted with gear and tiny little fiddly parts. Now, the two with helmets, so that's this one and then the cleric that I didn't bring over. I don't know if the arms are separate in the release versions. These are like 3D prints off the printer. They're not the same material that's being in the giveaways. But it was a little bit challenging to get in there. So I did, and this is my classic, if you're having trouble with eyes, paint them looking to the side. So you'll notice both the cleric and the fighter are painted looking to the side, because I didn't have to try to struggle to get the eyes exactly, looking forward. And I guess I was feeling a little old school myself, so I went with the super smooth kind of painting that was popular when I first started painting, instead of all the, textury, greedy, weathered, leathery type stuff, which is what I did on the... And today is the last day if you want the Wag halter. If you want to make an order and get the Wag halter as your free gift with purchase, it's the last day for that, but then he just stays on sale. And I don't know whether the miniature I know what the miniature for March is, I just don't know whether it's being shown or not. So this is the wizard, and I'm going to put some paint on his base. I have the colors that I used for that with me. You have to, I don't think I've ever painted like 4 at once, and I've been keep my paints in these little little organizers and stuff. This is just a cardboard box that I put all the paints in for the show, but I have these other little tray organizers that I use for regular stuff, and I've got like 3 of them are full of paints now from all the colors that I used on these guys. Oh, speaking of paints, before I forget, the new colors that just released are Rich Indigo, Wild Violet, and Black Indigo. And I'm actually, Black Indigo is my shadow color on the party. So when I paint OSL, I like to have kind of a unifying shadow color. I will very often use blue liner because it's, a dull blue, so you've got a little bit of coolness. It's duller in color because the shadows, you don't see color in when it's darker very well. But I liked that color, and I thought, well, why not, let's mix it up and try something else. All right, so I painted this very dark, which I somewhat regret, but now we'll see if I can get it back through painting. Because what I was originally saying is we get stressed out about, at least I get stressed. I know some of you are probably very accomplished at building bases and doing terrain and scenery and stuff like that, and I'm not any of those things, and I get very stressed out about it. But I got a lot less stressed out about it after I figured out that you can fix a lot of stuff with paint, or you can come in and use some other technique to fix stuff. So where did this one go? So like this one looks taller than the rest because I had cut out a piece and stuck it on because we were testing whether you could cut them and glue them and stuff. But if I had just stuck it like this, you would see that join, and you'll see if people start to play with corkboard for making bases, which is a great material, and I do recommend using it. It's nice and light, it's easy to cut, but you will often have to stack it up or glue bits together to get the shapes that you want, and you can see the joins, and it looks better when you can't see the joins. So then you need to use stuff like I used here, which I think I used the sandy paste from Viejo, but there, and you can see I didn't do it on the back, so you can see the join. There are similar pastes from Liquitex and Golden. And then other stuff you can do too. So you can use gravel. That is not gravel, that sticks. You can't use sticks for that. I mean, you can, but in a different way. Did I take away my gravel? Nope. You can use like gravel mixes where you just put a little glue where the join looks crummy, and then you dip it in there, or you sprinkle some on, and it covers up your bad joints. Or bad sculpting, or whatever thing you're trying to disguise on a base. Because where did my snow one go? So it's hard to see because it's a little lighter. But that was a cut edge and it's kind of jagged. So I either can, I paint this like an ice sheet and then it's a sheet of jagged ice and that's fine. Or I can take some of that stuff and I had used some to the sides to cover it up. And then you can go on to paint plastic surgery, as we like to call it. Quindy says, John announced tweed tin cup and shroomy. I like that he has a little buddy. Greeniko says, my basing style is stick more cork on it until it's adequate. Cork is a marvelous invention for miniature painters. It's sturdy, cheap, but you want to get some of that sanding paste stuff to go with it. All right, so I want to dry brush a little. Let's see. I brought over my array of brushes that we were testing that I haven't gone back to. No, that's not what I want. I'll just use something fairly standard then. And I have no idea what colors I painted this, going along with the idea that you should unclench a little about color matching. I don't know. I'm pretty sure I used this as the wash. I'm sure you could watch whatever episode that was and find out. But I know that whatever colors I used the first time I didn't have because I put together this set of Learn to Paint colors after that. I feel like we need a little bit of a reddish brown. What do we got? Oh, and I don't know exactly when it's coming out, or if it's out already. Maybe Quindy knows if it's out already. They're selling an expansion set of paints for the Learn to Paint Kit 1, and then eventually there will be one for the second, or the core. They're selling one for core skills, and then there should be one for layer up. I consider both of those to be equally accessible. I don't think they're a part 1 and a part 2. I just think of them as 1 and 2 because of the order in which I made them. But so the expansion set of paints is, if you have the set and you just have one, you may notice that, like, hey, there's no skin color in here. There's no red. There's no purple. I think there's something else maybe that's missing. But mainly, there's no skin colors because the guys you paint in the first set, the guy with skin has green skin. And then that's equally true for the second set. So that has reds and skin tones, but it doesn't have green. Like, it doesn't have green. It does have a blue, but it's a dull blue. So it's missing some of the stuff in the other one. So kind of together, they're like a mega kit. But for people who don't want to do that, but they do want more colors, we put together this, hold on, I've lost my brush now. This expansion set, which honestly I did like a million years ago. And I painted examples of each of the colors in use and how you might use them with other colors either in the expansion set or in the main set. So there's not like instructions in there, but there's kind of like color tips in there as well. And photos of colors in use using the same figures that are from the kits. And I should probably try to get a copy of that so I can show you guys. So I just want to lighten this up a little because I guess this is some very rich loamy earth or something. So I'm almost not even dry brushing because I don't mind if some of the paint in the crevices gets covered over because it's just super dark. But I guess if you're saying, like I said, maybe it's an underground hole that someone dug, like in a mine or something. It's just the dirt floor instead of any of the stone parts.
Yeah, exactly. It's such an, and it was funny too because early on, it was like, I think this was last year, so I remember Jeff, or, you know, Wade, I think had the same, so like I told Jeff, or even like Mike Rogers, we didn't not go.
So yeah, I'll have to get the new sets and then. Well, see, I don't know if I add that to my little. I wanted to have a set of paint available when I do the show that has a mix of colors because sometimes people will topics will come up in chat and those topics may be very different from what I plan to paint, and then I don't have colors because I didn't bring them over with me. So I thought if I put together, you know, this box of colors and kind of always have it on my side desk when I'm doing the show, then that will make it easier for me to answer questions and change my mind and be random. So I started with a mix of ebony flesh and a bit of harvest brown, and now I'm adding a lot more harvest brown because those seem kind of like the colors that were down there. So I originally thought about this, but I could see that there was a little bit of red in here, a little bit of orange, and this one had more orange than that. Like sometimes that's as scientific as we're being about our picking color stuff. And if you have trouble seeing, you can hold things up to it. It's like, well, does that color look more like that or more like that? And obviously it looks more like this because it's so dark right now. But we hope to get it closer to looking like that. Oops. How's the water? The bottom of my little holder thing. That does not make sense.
Well, ours technically I think is 80 also. It's just once they add some of the other fees on that, so it gets closer to that. But yeah. You're also at Nashville, you might have a better deal of it here.
And what I could also do is mix it up a little. Add some variation. So I'm going to add a little bit of green. The green in the Learn to Paint kit is Naga green. It is very saturated green. So if I go straight in with that, it's probably going to look weird. And I'll do it and then show you how I would fix that. Now this isn't going to be as dry brushy, but I could come over later and dry brush it. So if I just plop that on here, I mean, that's not very natural looking. But if I get some of the one I already had and kind of put along the edges or even just mix it in straight, and that's what would work better. If I have some wet parts and then I come in with my green, I can create a green that looks like it's part of that environment. And this stuff is all so forgiving on bases with all their textures and whatnot. So let's do that. Let's change this into some kind of, I don't know. I had all these reference photos when I first did the bases, and then regular viewers of the show will recall that reference photos and Twitch and I have not been getting along. And I think I accidentally deleted them like totally, not just from the Twitch place. And there, I got some down the side. That's fine. Acrylic paint stays wet a minute. No need to panic. Still not panicking. Just coming in. I just had to dispense a little bit of my darker color and fix it up. So if you haven't played around with wet blending, I recommend bases as a good place to start. And I was thinking, I had so much fun with that river one. I thought I'd do another one of those maybe. But adding little color variation like this is one of the things that people who do cooler bases are doing that you may not realize. In fact, maybe I should have done this one as a boring base. So we could compare. Do that here. Well, you know what? That's a topic for another day. How you can take something that's plain or too uniform in color and spruce it up. The other thing about this adding the brighter green, and maybe I'm going to just go a little brighter in spots. Because if I keep dry brushing, but I don't use like bright green on it, it's going to also dull it down. So whether you add colors physically by mixing them in like this, or you add colors visually by layering or dry brushing them on top of one another, or washes is also a method of that. You're still mixing color. You're mixing it optically versus physically. But it still will have the effect of this green is going to tone down as we go on. So that's clearly going to take a minute to dry. That's why we're doing multiple ones. So I had done the wash on there. So dry brushing won't take a minute to dry. What else could I do? I said I wanted to do another river one. So let's get some paint started on that and let it dry and then get to the next stage. Because now I have to make it up. Because I don't have whatever all those nice colors were for that, where I picked out colors I thought would look natural and stuff. So this heather blue, that should work pretty well for the stream part. But all I got for greens is that Naga, so I'm going to have to kick that down a little. And mixing brown in is a good way to do it. Just for fun, let's try the complement mixing. So the other way of mixing stuff so that to dull things down is to mix in the complement. And the complement is the thing that's across from it on the color wheel. Nope, zooming in closer is the opposite of what I want. So you see this big line that says complementary. So if I put one arrow next to green, the opposite arrow is on red. So if you're sitting at home with your, and you have Core Skills 1, in the instructions to paint the orc skin that is not a super vibrant color, I have you mix in this brown. Because I didn't give you reds. But you can experiment with mixing in reds or other browns and get different kinds of green out of your one bottle of Naga green. So let's do some of those things just for fun. So I can pick a green to paint a second version of this. Where's my light? Did I change the brightness on this? Let's kick that up. Yeah, now we can see it a little better. Well, I'm probably going to have to show you the adventurer guys again because clearly they were not very vibrant the first time I showed them to you. There will be pictures. I'll probably post some work in progress pictures soon. I've been like frantic with that, and then I'm trying to finish that up so I can do like another rush project for a different client. And then I'm still trying to put out enough stuff on my blog that it's worthwhile for people subscribing to my blog. So I'm a little behind on things that I want to do, but I'm working on it. So we'll try each of those reds, and see, I'll get the harvest brown, which is not the brown that I used, and then the woodland brown that is the brown that you use in the Lone Pink Cat. I think. You know what, it's been a minute and I could be wrong, but we'll test both the browns and then it won't matter. Maybe I should have even tested the dark one. So that little bit didn't make a big difference. So I'm going to get more of that russet brown. Some colors are have what I call, well, I don't call it, I didn't make this up. Art people made this up. Weak tinting strength. So that means if you wanna mix green from red and or from blue and yellow, you will quickly discover that you need a lot more yellow than you need blue. yellow is a weak tinting strength color. But that doesn't mean all blues are super strong tinting strength and all yellows are super weak. There may still be instances where you're trying to mix blue, mix shade for blue, and you've got to put in like so much of the one color to balance out the other one. So it's kind of a more grayed down version. And you see, interestingly, it got a lot darker, even though that was a bright red. And mixing anything together starts making stuff darker and duller, but complements in particular will do it. So this one was with the dark red. And interestingly, I don't think it's like, it actually is keeping a little more vibrancy as the dark red. So I kind of feel like that color fits sort of a swampy vegetation look that I was going for. So I think I will use the dark red to mix my greens for a swamp base. But I just want to get a little paint on here. Wet blending is often easier if you already have some paint on the figure. Like you're not expecting one pass of wet blending to do all the work. That typically does not work very well. Nope, bigger brush even. That's the other thing about bases. You gotta bring out those bigger brushes. So I'm gonna just mix up some green. And this is an undercoat. I don't really care if it's not good. If it's not good, I'll fix it later. I hope. You'll find out. You'll find out if I fix it later or if you get to point and mock. And now I'm putting it down here. It looks more green than red. I mean green than brown than green. But that's partly because now it's on a gray base. So it's not going to be exactly the same color as this. And that's okay. I mean, obviously, if you're painting a unit or an army and you do want everyone to look like they're standing in the exact same swamp, you probably want to make a note of what colors you use on the base so you can use it on the next guy's base. But if you're just, I painted this base a while ago that I like, or I painted this whatever a while ago that I like, and I don't want to try to use that again on this other figure, you don't always have to be 100% the same as what you did to get the parts that you like. And I'm going to try to put more on the rim this time, because apparently I'm very bad about that. And I think I'd probably just paint them black before I glue them down to their things. But I remember something else I wanted to do with the older ones. So let's get this one here. It looks like water, but I think it would look even more like water if we put some gloss sealer on it. Because then we'll evoke the texture or finish of water, as well as trying to have created the motion and whatnot. Did I have another one that looked like it should have water? I don't think I did. I think this was the one that looked like it should have water on it. Although this may make it not show up as well on stream. But I noticed somebody, I think Holly Monster, on the Kickstarter page had painted some with some really nice looking water effects. So I thought, well, I should at least like gloss mine out. It's interesting how it makes the colors look lighter, at least when it's wet. We'll see what happens when it dries. I'll put that over there so I don't accidentally mess with it. Now I have two things drying, and I'll start to work on this guy's base. Well, actually, I'll let you vote. I'll put out the colors, but if you would prefer to see me mess more with some more of the base boss things, or if you want to see me cut the base boss things up, or do any other stuff with the Base Boss inserts, because you're thinking about going in the Kickstarter but you're not sure, just let me know. And I will mess with, hey, Lady Bee Miniatures. I will mess more with Base Boss stuff if you guys would prefer that, but if you want to see some of how I would paint the base on the Adventuring Party Wizard, I can do that too. I'll just put paints out for that. What do you guys think about it? Is there something I can give you a look at while I do this? Let's see. Hold on, I got a big clump in my... I guess we can watch these dry and see if it keeps looking shiny or not. Oh, that's not... That one's shiny because the paint is wet. So you are watching that one dry. This one should stay shiny. This one will hopefully not look shiny because it will be dry at some point. So now, because I am matching this base to other bases where they are literally going to stand in a group, I am trying to match the colors. But even there, I could add variation, because you can also go back if you are trying to match something and you can't match the new thing, you can go add elements of the new thing to the old thing. So you could add a little bit of a wash of one of the colors that you used on the old thing somewhere on the new thing, to help unify them a little more. Just like if your sculpting isn't great, you don't always have to fix the sculpting. You can try to just get better at hiding it with the painting. Which is not to say that you shouldn't try to be a better sculptor. I definitely should try to be a better sculptor. But I'm not going to complain about base inserts that make it so I don't always have to be a better sculptor. So Pendrake's voting for the Base Boss bases, looks like. So if anyone disagrees, speak soon. I mixed up these paints, so I will just give you a very quick demonstration of how I use underpainting and zenithal priming and all that kind of stuff. Because there's a ton of articles on this on my blog, but I have not shown it in person, I don't think. It's going to be a very quick example. So if you look at this guy's base, and you could do the same thing with these base inserts, of course. If you mount your figure on and then do like a zenithal prime or whatever. So this is kind of a zenithal prime, other than I was shooting from the directions of the light source. So he has a little bit of light here because he's standing behind the torch person, and then he's got the light from his own thingamabobber. So, and you think about the light travels in a straight line, so there's going to be some like around here. That's why this side of his foot is so light, and then it would be lighter just a little bit here. So the primer like kind of does that, but because so many things are in the way, it doesn't always, a spray air brush or spray primer isn't going to always duplicate the way light behaves. It's just a pretty useful way to mostly duplicate the way light behaves. So, and then when it comes to non-metallic metal, that's the other place where, okay, it's like kind of a clue, but you're going to have to make a bunch of stuff up. So what I do is I just follow the map. So part of that map was in my head. It was clearer on the clothes. You can see it a bit on his. So the way I would do this hood is I would paint light blues there and dark blues here, and then I'd make it look nice. So, it's going to be like more medium colors here, dark colors under into the back, and then light colors here again. Oops, and I had water on my ferrule, so now paint's everywhere. I don't know if you guys have a problem with that, but I have never gotten better at that. So that area is wet now, but I'll try to put a little bit of paint on. So at this point, I'm not even really worried about blending in between those things. I'm just trying to get the, okay, where is it more like this or more like that? And then I can fix the in-between parts later once I know where everything's supposed to be. So that's the basic idea of that. But I won't bore you with the fixing. We have multiple votes for boss bases, and we'll go back to that. And Ron will just be sad that it takes me an hour longer to finish that. But that's okay. Ron is sad a lot. I'm constantly disappointed, Ron. I haven't painted any bears wrong lately, so there's at least that. Okay, so now that it's mostly dry. That's maybe not always the best way to discover it. But moving it around, I can see that I did not get the gloss everywhere that should look like water. And now I'm going to get cat hairs in it instead. But I'm pretty sure I'm not the only person in this chat who gets cat hair on their painting all the time. So I'm just going to hit a couple places that I missed. If it wasn't shiny enough, I could also go back in and... Now, you're not going to be able to build up water texture with this kind of stuff. And even if you do, these things shrink. So you need either, like thick acrylic 1-part things shrink. So you need either a 2-part resin thing, or now they have like some kind of 1-part thing. And I keep meaning to go get some of this because it's just like so magical. Where you do that, you put it on, and then you use like a UV light. It's like, what? So my dream has been fulfilled of a 1-part thing. Because I love the look of things that people do with resin bases, but I just don't want to deal with the fumes. And that stuff only is good. Like, even if you keep it in 2 parts, it's only good for about a year or 2. So if you aren't making a lot of stuff, you start just throwing stuff out and buying it again. All right, where was my bigger brush? Because we're ready for some dry brushing on here, looks like. It's the only brush with a purple handle. How do I lose it? Talented. All right. Let's use this one instead, I guess. Is that big enough? Is it sturdy enough? I have some brushes that the ends are falling off. Yeah, I have another small one. Yeah, I'll use that. All right, so I'm going to go straight to Harvest Brown. I keep mixing some of my green in, I think. And I'm just using a regular old paper towel. For dry brushing, I'm just doing it off to the side, which turns out to be where my brush is. Because I cannot get everything on screen. But just in case anyone hasn't been here before to see how I load my brush, and then discover that I didn't rinse out my brush. That's a little clumpy. But that's okay. You can recover that, especially with synthetic brushes. I like to use this stuff. The Master's Brush Cleaner and Preserver. Restored brushes that were deeply abused with that, but now I've lost my dry brush. No, because I was going to show you. You can tell it's been like 5 seconds since I did this because now I've completely forgotten what to do. So you load plenty of paint on there and you start whipping it here. And I always like to tamp, like where you take the end of the brush, regardless of what size it is, round, flat. This is a filbert, I think. And now you can see that there's just like a dusting of color on the tops of the paper towel texture. That tells me that the brush is probably loaded correctly for dry brushing. You can zoom back in a little. I don't like to scrub really crazy. I think it's better to do more of like I'm dusting across the texture. Sometimes I'll turn it around. I know people that, I'll get a crappy brush. They're really scrubbing. And that is definitely going to be hard on your brush. Any dry brushing is going to be hard on your brush. Scrubbing like that is going to be hard on your brush. But you are going to start, that's when you can, if you're looking at it, if you put on like these magnifiers and you're watching yourself do it under a good light, you can see the dust coming off there. So if you're getting chalky effects and you're like a scrubber who's using a really dry brush, that's probably part of why you're getting a chalky, dusty look, because you're creating, the pigment is so dry that it's turning to dust and looking chalky. So even though I'm actually did not add any of the brown to my brush, you can see that there's still, I've covered some of the green, but some of it is still showing. So it's like it's low growing plants or whatever. Which is what I wanted. I didn't, if I put in like a lot of green, but the texture doesn't fit anything green, then it might look weird. But if I have hints of green, it hopefully looks like, low growing plants on a fairly flat ground. Something often seen in my yard, which doesn't so much have a lawn per se. I mean, there are parts that are trying to have a lawn, and we're trying to hope they go away. So now I'm going to go to the less red, but also slightly lighter in value. Oh, I did put the swatches on it. Woodland brown. And then decide where I want to go from there. And then when I do change colors, I start in with a very light hand, because if I got it wrong, if the color shift is too dramatic, and I go in like real thick and heavy-handed, it's going to be a lot more obvious than if I just start kind of lightly dusting and see how it goes. And then as I take more paint off the brush, I may need to apply more pressure. And then eventually, I need to go get more paint. Let's see, that base is a little dull. What can we do? What could we do to make this a little more exciting? And my answer is just try some different colors. So I mix a little bit of blue in. And then once I make a different color, then I have to resist the temptation to put the different color everywhere. Because that's what makes a base look real samey, is if everything is the same everywhere. So you kind of have to pick some places where you're doing the thing and not do the thing everywhere. So I will just make this little peninsula or whatever it is, hillock. It has different plants on it. And then go back to a little more dry brushing. Let's see. Now I did lose some of my texture there, but I'm pretty sure it'll come back in my next step when I go up lighter again. And what have I got? I'm gonna be interesting and mix in skin to my brown instead of like cream or white or something like that. And I actually very often do this on my bases. So even if it was like, if this guy wasn't part of a group effort, I would probably use some of the skin tones that I used on him in my highlights on the stone as a way of kind of bringing things together a little more. Hey, Crows and Bones. So because, if you have lighter skin tones on your figure, they're not like super, well, no, I mean, because all skin tones are really just shades of brown, browny or pinky. So they work well for this purpose, for, highlighting the kinds of textures you often find on bases. And it's a good way to unify your thing, or if you're trying to run with a light set of paints, it's a good way to be using colors for multiple purposes. And woodland brown actually is a secret skin tone, in my opinion. You can, if you mix white or linen white in there, you start getting very, very skin tone colors. So But now I can't remember if that's in the core skills or if it's in level up. Because if it's in core skills, then there is a secret skin color in the core skill set. If you've done one of the Reaper quad color challenge, or what did they call that one? Well, there's one where there's kind of a set of colors that is picked out on. There are lists that you pick the colors from. But then there's another one where you get to pick colors. And those kind of limited color challenges can be very interesting. Like, you can learn a lot from that. And I did one years ago where I used, it wasn't dragon blue, but it was something like that. It was like woodland brown, dragon blue, and then black and white. And I painted, there's a Reaper wizard he's got a staff, like a weird little face on the end, and then he has an owl on his arm. And I painted that guy with just 4 colors. Now I might pick slightly different colors, but those colors actually, I mean, they were surprisingly flexible. I made it a winter scene, so I didn't have to deal with the fact that I couldn't make a lot of dirt colors.
That's what I wanted.
So that's kind of like a sear wasteland. Not quite wasteland, but you know, like a not very fertile area. But let's add a little bit more through washes, I think. Colors have I got? Oh, I do. I forgot. I have another brown, dark highlights, which says it's a skin color, but it's also brown because it goes the other way. You can use the skin colors for highlights, but then you can also use skin colors as browns. So let's get more of that blue black in here. Because the other way that I will manipulate bases is, so what this, I mean, it doesn't look that way now, but this base was painted with, I mean, they're not like totally neutral grays, but they were just, you know, the shadowed stone set plus a little more for making darker shadows. And then they look colorful because I added glazes for the torch over. But I'll do the same thing with stuff that doesn't have a torch. I'll just use colors that were in other places on the figure. And if you thin it down a lot, and let's do our thin test. So I'm using that heather blue again, but I'm using it straight this time instead of mixing it with one of my browns. So it's actually not even super thin because that's not a super powerful color. But you can start thinner and then see, you know, if you're not seeing anything, then you can add a little more paint. That gives a little bit of variation. It is too bad I really only have the one green. What else could we put in here? I feel like putting orange in for reasons I cannot explain. So let's see what happens when I do it. There's a limited palette category in the Reaper Challenge League. So if you haven't checked out the Reaper Challenge League, it's a good way to motivate yourself to get painting. And I've now given you a secret cheat code limited palette if you're looking for one. So that was like, you get something like dragon blue, or I probably had cyan blue, or true. It might have been true blue. I think it was true blue. Because the bones color, this figure's so old, the bones colors weren't even out. So like a nice mid-level, pretty vivid blue. Then this woodland brown and white and black, and you can mix a surprising number of colors with that. So this orange that I picked out, or maybe it's yellow, I don't know. I have my definition for colors that are yellow is very small. So where my border between orange and yellow is smaller than most people's. And we all have stuff like that. Like you may have, I'll see people call stuff purple and I'm like, but it's pink. It's not purple, it's pink. So my goal here is just to add little variations. And you can imagine if I was working on a unit's worth of bases, once I have this paint, it's just a few seconds to add this in various places. So even if I wanted to do kind of this as a mass thing, I'm working out how to do it, which my understanding is if you're painting an army, you will often do a miniature where you do that, where you figure out your color scheme. It's like, okay, what colors do I want to use? What shades do I want to use on those colors? What do I want to highlight them with? How do I want to paint the base? So this would be like the test one because I'm just making it up as I go along. But once you know that and you have the recipe, adding these little things where you add a little bit of color through another level of dry brushing or washing or glazes or whatever you want to call it is not that much effort. Particularly if you were doing what I like, if we had a figure that was attached to this, I would just be grabbing colors off the palette that I had already used on the figure because that would be part of my goal is unifying it to the figure. So it's not a huge difference, but it's not just everything's the same color, then the wash was the same on everything, then everything was dry brushed exactly the same. So it adds a little bit of variation and it looks more natural and it looks more interesting to look at. So hopefully that kind of made sense on that one, where I definitely should have cut the little bubble off. We'll turn it into a rock. Yeah, I have gray paint. We'll turn it into a rock with my gray paint. Let's start with shadow, actually. Maybe we need even more shadow. And in fact, I want to add a little more shadow in general. I feel like the fact that there are different heights is not showing up that well. And I think it will become more apparent if we add more shadows. And I'm just thinning down the paint in a similar way to how I added like the blue and the yellow. And putting it on the slopes. And I can go to where some of these, there's some parts that stick up more than others, and I can accentuate that by adding a little bit of that shadow color too. I'm going to add even a bit more under where it's kind of like overhangs, just to emphasize that. Oh, I am remembering something that I probably didn't mention in the beginning. So this base insert that I'm using is intended as lava. So that's why it has that little bubble there. And that was the one I painted to be like what it's supposed to be. And it's nice and easy to paint. You just start with like white and then you dry brush on yellow and orange and red, and then you go up to like a dark brown for where the lava is drying. I guess you can even go to black where the lava is starting to cool. So the original place where I started painting some of the original show, my point was that you can change a lot with paint. Even if you're not great at sculpting or whatever, you can change a lot with paint, and you can change a lot with a few simple things like the gravel and the Vallejo paste. And actually, I want to do one more thing to this maybe, because I got little flowers. So sometimes you can find little flowers at like Joann's and Michael's and stuff, but bring a mini, because something's gonna look little to you in the store, and then you will get it home and you will find out that the flower is like the size of a miniature's head or half the size of a miniature's head. These I think are for people who do fancy nail polish. So I think they're meant to do exactly what I'm about to do, and you pull a couple off and you put it into nail polish. And in fact, I was going to get glue, and then I remembered that brush on sealer. So I could use the gloss sealer that I used here, But it's shiny, and I don't want the shine to show through the flower, which is why I was kind of like, oh, I don't want to use super glue, which is what I have on my desk in case we need to glue anything. But brush on sealer is semi-gloss, well, semi-matte, I guess, really, if not completely matte. If you add a little bit of water, it's completely matte. But okay, I am gonna have to look for my correct tweezers. I think this is where I went wrong with the flowers. Those are my tweezers for pulling cat hairs off of things. I have a different set of tweezers. Well, several different sets of tweezers for various purposes. But these ones are nice for picking up fine things. So I'm going to try and get a couple flowers. Oh, that flower looks pretty good. Now these kinds of things are typically fragile compared to gravel and stuff like that. But these flowers are low lying. So even if this base were going to get handled in gaming, it'd be fine. It's more if you get the flowers that are on, like dry flowers, that sometimes they're on little stalks and you can kind of make a bush or something like that. It's nice, but I would be careful about using those on figures I want to play with. And the other thing you can do is like just put the plant really close to the figure's feet or something. And then it's not, the plant is not likely to get handled directly. Yeah, picking these up is super fun. Let's try that.
I was living in Tulsa at the time, and I was single, but I was living at home with my parents because I was going to college still, and I had an opportunity to
Do I have another good flower?
that they were opening a new store. I was the assistant manager at the one in Tulsa, and they were opening a new store.
I think I have to pull another one off.
The opportunity to move either San Antonio or to
These are the flowers that if you saw, so last year we had a different leprechaun. And I painted him, and I put flowers like this. In fact, they might have even been this exact same color flower on that guy. And that's another thing that if you know you're going to do that on a bunch of stuff, you can assembly line it. And it would take a lot less time to do a bunch of bases than it took me to do just the one. So I think I'm going to consider the swampy one done, other than me fixing up the edges, maybe. And you probably don't want to watch me fix the edges. That's boring. So this one, I was, because after I did the wash and it was so dark, I was like, well, I think I kind of messed that up. And I'm actually pretty happy with this now. So that happens, whether you know what you're doing or not. You will go through those ups and downs of, oh, this is looking good. Oh, wait, no, it's not. Oh, wait, yes, it is. Oh, wait, no, it's not. And sometimes you just got to mess with stuff a little more, and then sometimes the trick is to stop messing with stuff and walk away. And that's one of the challenges, is knowing which is which. But so I don't know if you guys like this one, but I like how this came out in the end. Adding that little bit of blue for some variation just made so much more of a difference than I imagined it might. And just to show my palette, this is the blue that I mixed to add a little bit more blue at the end. And then this is the yellow I added on top. And then when I was adding blue during the painting, I had mixed it with my browns. So it was really, I made more of a gray. It wasn't like too much blue and initially. And it really isn't now. I mean, that's kind of like that thing where I was talking about earlier, how people are going to say, oh, I see blue and purple and green and all this stuff. And you're like, I don't see any of that. What are you talking about? It's like if I took a picture of this and took a color picker, that would probably show up as gray, not as blue. But the coolness of that, of just that little bit of blue, is so different compared to all the warm colors that were on the thing that it makes a difference. Anyway, let's paint a different one. Can I make this look not crappy? So I kind of did the waterway similar to on the swampy one. I kind of don't like what's happened with some of the edges near the ground after the wash. So I just want to get a little bit of blue, make it darker blue. Kind of tidy that up around the edge. Because it's not going to look very convincing as water if there's like obviously paint flowing into it.
Now, be clear here. Muhammad asked for a gaming mouse and a gaming keyboard. Of course, we're like, no, buddy, you can't do that. It's not meant for
Oh,
gaming.
hi Valander, and thank you for subscribing.
We'll get you a keyboard and mouse.
That's as many as 4 7s.
$150 keyboard. But,
So are you talented at math? Because I am not.
so yes, if you need anything to help, kind of like for me, what I have, and work didn't pay for this. I already had this. But
So this was, I don't think I brought this gravel mix over. This is one I have that's got like a mix of different gravels and then little rocks in it as well. If you want to go buy any of this stuff, this one I feel like was a pre-mix and I have no idea now where I got it. It's possible it's GW even, I don't even know. But you can make your own. The problem, so most of these are things that model railroad people use. So there's talus, I think is maybe what they call the little gravel that we use as earth and smaller stones. The problem with the way Woodland Scenics sells it is they sell it individually. So, and actually, yeah, I was going to do something with this. So this is probably the smallest grain. But you see it's very uniform. They're all the smallest grain. There's not that much difference between them. This one is a mix of the medium and small. And I think it's gray small, red small, and gray medium. The problem is you have to buy each of these individually, and they're for people who are making railroad boards. So it's like if you make terrain boards, it's great. That's you might use all that stuff. If you're just doing little bases, even if you're doing a whole army, it's a lot of stuff, and you might not use it all. If you have any friends, you could go in with them together and try to buy a bunch of this stuff and then split it up. Would be my suggestion. So I wanted to try something with this one. Because earlier I was talking about one of the things that we say to people after contests about realism and stuff. And then this one's kind of funny because I get how people get here. But you notice I'm painting all of these things. And it gets confused because, let's say I didn't have the red stuff mixed in. And you were making like a light brown earth. You'd be like, well, that's dirt color. And you just put that on your base and call it good. And you'll see that a lot, especially with newer painters, that they have the cool basing materials and they're using them well, but then they don't paint them. And it just doesn't look, it doesn't match the way the figure looks then. It doesn't look in scale to the figure. And then you would think, okay, it's really rock. If I want to put a rock on a base, why do I have to paint a rock? It's already a rock. And you just do. Like, just accept it, I guess. But the issue is that it won't look in scale. So I wanted to demonstrate that by I had this red stuff. And this one's supposed to be kind of red like Mars. So I'm just, this is tea leaves, actually. So when I make tea, I sometimes let the bags dry out and collect the tea bags. And this is nice for like forest leaf litter. But I would probably put this on before I primed and painted. Like you maybe could use this as a scatter after. There's some scatters that you don't have to paint, but most often I put this on to look like forest detritus. That'll like come up on the floor. And I put it on even before I prime, so it gets primed and painted. And then some of them I'll paint like little sticks, and some of them I'll paint kind of like textures like we're doing here. But where did my red one go? So this, I thought, well, okay, where would we want red sand? But I did a Martian one, so we would want red sand. And I got my fresh on sealer. So I'm just going to put some of this on and then dip it in there. Trying to decide. Let's cover up the bubble that I forgot to get rid of. I'm just like a little. fall of gravel that happened there or something. That's where the Mars rover landed. So it maybe it's not super obvious on the camera, but it's too uniform. It doesn't look like the same as the painted stuff. And I'm going to let this dry and then put a second coat on because it's also very uniform in altitude. I don't know. The height of it is pretty much, it looks like one layer of little rocks. So to make it look more like a natural fall of gravel or something, I will let that dry and put another coat on. So now how do I want to try to rescue this? What a good question. I'm checking around where the bigger rocks are because I can see that in some places the wash didn't get all the way around the edges and I don't want like a weird light spot kind of showing, so I'm just filling in. I'm just going to use the same dark brown I used on the previous base actually. So I think I want to go with more of a sandy look for this. And I just made my life interesting because I don't think I have any sandy colors in my little kit. So let's see what I do have. What can I make for sand? Oh, maybe I'm wrong. I do have desert sand. Looks like beach sand. I feel like there was another color. I kind of went with that, but maybe I'm wrong. Let's see what I can come up with. I think if I mix a little bit of yellow in, I will feel happier about this as sand. And I don't want to start with, this is very light, and I had a wash on here and everything, so I don't want to start there. So let's just try mixing the woodland brown and desert sand. I want beach sand, not desert sand. That's why I'm not happy with it. So there we learned that desert sand does not have high tinting strength because it didn't lighten that up as much as I thought. And then since it's here, let's just put a little bit of this yellow in. And as I previously mentioned, yellow does not have a lot of tinting strength, so that didn't hardly do anything.
So go to the website CDW.
What have you all been up to lately?
Computer.
You do any fun things the past couple of weeks? I feel it's a little more beach sandy. I'll just put out some of the desert sand in the comparison. I'm going to use a slightly smaller brush because I don't want to get sand on the beach. Well, sand on the water part of the beach. The thing about this is kind of like, you know, those little pools that form when the waves are coming in and out. Go for ocean look. Rocky shore more than a sandy shore. And I'm getting this on my rocks, but I don't care that much because I'm going to have to paint the rocks a different color anyway. So, if I want them to look like a different color. And that's one thing that's kind of fun about these. And you can consider this when you're sculpting and constructing your own bases too. They protrude upward from the lipped thing a little, so you can have stuff that hangs over and continues the texture on the sides. Ideally, you paint around that or underneath it too, but clearly I've left that as a problem for later. So you can make your own mix like this, and there are probably people online that sell stuff where they've bought it. So it's like small mini people that are selling specifically to miniature painters, where they buy like the big bunches of containers of stuff, and then they do mixes where you can buy something that's more varied, interesting, and in a size of container that seems more appropriate to you. I just the one I knew about went out of business years ago, I think. So I don't know who the current people are who do that, but I feel like I was on YouTube recently and saw a guy that had a channel who was selling stuff like that. Kerniko is in panic painting stuff for the Reaper Challenge League. Oh, does it end like, is this the last day for a leg of it? I don't always. My Reaper Challenge League is named Ron, so that's where all my challenges come from. All right, now I want to make that lighter. It ends at midnight. Oh, paint like the wind, Kerniko. Well, maybe don't paint like the wind because then your paint will dry out. I'm gonna go to the other yellow. I feel like candlelight yellow is more sandy. So that one's monthly, and then the quarterly challenge is the quarterly thing, I'm guessing. That would make sense. And that may be too yellow. So I don't feel like that looks very convincingly sand, but let's mix it with this. And then I'll do another layer, and then I'll probably just add some white. So continuing to mess with the yellow. There's monthly, quarterly, and bi-yearly challenges for the Reaper Challenge League. Well, definitely check that out if you are looking for a challenge. That should keep you busy. And my understanding is you have a lot of flexibility in what you paint so that it's helping you get stuff you want to get done. It's not like a lot of contests. Everybody has to paint the same figure, or you have to paint a certain theme of figure, or a certain scale of figure, or whatever. And my understanding is that the Reaper Challenge League gives you a lot of freedom for different subjects and stuff, because there's lots of different categories of things. Greenco says, I do paint like the wind, variable speeds, and consistent results. Oh, I understand that. Well, no, I guess my speed is almost always slow. The that little goblin kit I was showing at the beginning of the show is probably one of the fastest things I've put together. Because it was I need it yesterday kind of project. I did finish in time to go to Thanksgiving dinner, but it was close. Alright, I see a place where I've got some brown on my blue. Oh, this is my mixing brush. That's probably that plan. Alright, let's go up later. I don't know if I feel like this one is getting improved or not. I think I just didn't pick a good wash color for what I was trying to do. But that's okay. They can't all be winners. Okay, I accidentally grabbed linen white because that's what I had, and that's not in one of the pink kits, but it's pretty similar. Two colors that are. Queenie confirms that yes, there are lots of different categories in the Reaper Challenge League, and we even have a couple of categories that allow for non-Reaper minis. And this is true of the, occasionally there's a contest on the Reaper forums, and there's usually a non-Reaper category. And then stuff for different sizes too. So if you're someone who likes to paint monsters or busts or something, they have categories for that as well. And I only know this because occasionally I'm alert enough to my private messages on the Reaper forums to see that I've been asked to judge and go look at the awesome things that people do. The person who administers that wisely has a number of artists that they ask to be judges, so that hopefully there will be at least 3 or 4 of us who actually read their mail and are available. Do I want to go to pure white? Maybe I do. Well, pure white. But I would be very judicious about this first going in. So I'm more going to touch the brush down than scrape it across. And now I'm going to start painting the rocks and hope I can rescue it there. Let's see. Brush will hopefully work. And since I have gray paint on my palette from showing you the wizard's base, I'm just going to use some of that. And let's start with a darker color. And we'll go up. I may quickly come to regret how many little rocks are in this particular mix. And then when you start looking at stuff people sell for basing things, you can find some cool stuff. Like I think I have some terracotta flower pots and old-fashioned gaslight lamps for that you'd see on the streets. And what else did I get? I got a garbage can. That was a model train thing. That set may have come with a phone booth as well. So there are some like nifty pre-made things that you can mix into your bases, especially if you like urban type stuff, which is urban is a little tougher than this kind, or something like a temple or something like that, because it's more uniform and man-made, where, you know, I just fixed a lot of these problems by paint, but it's a little tougher when you're doing the urban stuff. I know that I struggled with some of those, especially making them not look stupid. So I had ideas, but I didn't manage to make them not look stupid. But there are things out there, and maybe one day I will figure out how to share some ideas for that, and we can hope that they will make more of these inserts that address those kinds of, you know, regular textures, carved stone temple floors, stuff like that. I think there's a sci-fi one in the Kickstarter currently, this one, and I feel like there's a third. Does anyone know what the third set of base inserts is? Unless they've added more. I thought I looked at the page, but now I'm thinking about it. I just looked at how long it had left. I don't think I scrolled through to see what they may have added to the main page. But I, for one, would be very happy if they made lots more of these. And I certainly think there should be like a Dungeon Dwellers one. The first year when we were started doing Dungeon Dwellers and they were in metal, they were not made on bases. They were with the Slaughter thing. And I have some pre-made bases that I bought years ago from one of these little companies that sells resin doodads. I think that's where I got the terracotta flower pots and stuff as well. Some of the, I think, yeah, I got like Greek and Roman columns too. And I just used, pre-made like dungeon flagstone bases for the 2 or 3 of the dungeon dwellers that I painted the year those were the mini of the month. Actually, I'm going to get one blue. Quindy Lou says it looks like just the lava and the sci-fi inserts currently. They previewed the Scald ones, but it hasn't shown up yet. Thank you, Kerniko, because after I read Quindy's messages, I'm like, am I going nuts? I swear there was a third thing. I don't know if you can hear a sad cat in the background. It's not the usual sad cat. This sad cat is objecting to the fact that my husband closed his office door. How dare he? I'm going to try that thing I did with the blue on the other one. So, because if we're assuming this is a nice warm sunlit kind of beach scene, the shadows are going to appear cooler. And I can make that happen by mixing blue into whatever I mix in my shadows. I just need to get them a little darker as well. If I add some of that in places, maybe that will help this look a little less whatever's happening here. This color. Wow, my paint's drying up fast today. Just make the color of the part that doesn't have any texture a little more like the colors that I painted on the stuff that does have texture. So I don't mind that those rocks are a little bit patchy because, rock surfaces aren't always super uniform and stuff. So I'm just going to leave that as it is. Let's see if this brush is small enough to start doing some dry brushing on these rocks. Now I have to be a little more careful to try to not get the bristles down on the part that I want to look like sand more than rocks. Quindy says, it looks like there should be another Kickstarter update, but I don't know if it will have further insert info. Well, we can cross our fingers. I certainly think that it's a fruitful area to look into. Because I'm not the only person who doesn't like making bases, I don't think. I know some people really enjoy it. Like, sometimes I think it's Michael Proctor's favorite part. No, he likes the miniatures too. But he does enjoy making super cool bases. And I'm out of practice and probably need to try to enjoy it a little more. Alright, I can do that thing where I go even lighter. But let's just use the flat of the brush. I want every single one of these rocks to look identical. So I'm going to do my add a little bit of color thing again. Thin down some of the blue, put that on some of the rocks. And then I'll get one of my browns. I think this is the Harvest Brown. And the blue I've been using is the Heather Blue from Layer Up, not the Dragon Blue from Core Skills, because that's an intense blue. I would have to knock it down, probably even to be using it like this. Mix it up a little on the rocks. I don't know if you think I rescued that one or not. Work on the water a little bit more. Just using lighter and darker versions of the blue to make a little more water flow. Tiny bit of green. I wonder if we can add some plants to that. Let's see. Were there green? Did I have little green flowers? I did not. Blue flowers look weird. I'm thinking it should look like something like seaweed, and I'm not sure if any of these are going to do the trick. Purple. There's purple kelp. I wonder if that would work. Let's see. Where are my tiny tweezers? Broke off like a bit of that and put it on there. I don't know if it would kind of look like some seaweed on the shore. So these are nail scissors. Let's see. I'm just gonna have to hit a big area with the brush on sealer. Well, let's hope I got the brush on sealer. I bet I got the gloss. Oh well. I'm gonna put gloss on water anyway, so hopefully I'll just make it look wet. Putting some of it right over the plant as well. And then I should have done the gloss part on the water first, but I didn't think about it. But I should be able to work around the seaweed. And actually, now I'm thinking about it, that may fix the weird shore part that doesn't look like it fits in. So that part, where you've got sand that's weird. Okay, why is it still doing that? Apologies. What? There's ghosts in my lamp apparently. Where you've got sand that's wet, it's darker and duller looking than the dry sand. So if I painted a bit more like that and then add the gloss sealer, maybe make these parts look more like the water's just receded from them. I have to give that just a minute to dry. Alright, well, I don't think that one's quite as cool as some of them, but hopefully it's not terrible. Lamp ghosts. Yeah, I think I do have lamp ghosts. Our kitchen lamp, I keep saying we have ghosts, but no, actually it's more like we got a garbage disposal, which our house was not fitted out for, so we have to get it installed. And our house was made in 1970 when apparently they didn't have codes, and now they have codes. And what they need to do to make the garbage disposal work, we are not up to code for. So getting a garbage disposal is turning into a multi-$1,000 repair to my house, but that's usually why I don't get new things. Alright, I'm going to call that one done, even though I don't love it. What else do we have? Oh, that's right. I forgot. I wanted to do something to this one before I started painting it, which is to put a stick on it. And like I said, this wouldn't look as glaring if you took this and put it on a finished miniature. I mean, we'll pretend that he's not in the dungeon for a minute, or maybe somebody brought a stick into the dungeon. But it's still, I don't know, to me it doesn't look like it fits. It looks like something that I just stuck on there. If I stick it down and paint it, it will fit. Even if I paint it to kind of, it's kind of gray-brown with striations and then lighter colors where it's broken off, which is what I would do, it's going to look better if it's painted. So, let's see. Like there. This one I feel like I will use super glue for, and I also kind of want to get down to the plastic so that I'm gluing a surface to a surface, not a surface to paint. At least a little. I mean, it's light. It probably won't matter, but just in case. And now I need my super glue. So I've shown this in the past, but it's useful. Once I learned this trick, I liked it a lot. So I'm going to share it again. I don't like to put my super glue like right out on the thing or even right out on the part that I'm going to put it on. I like to dispense it into or onto something else. And then use a toothpick so that I have a lot more control about how much glue goes. But anyway, one of the things we're getting fixed is in our kitchen lamp. It is like it has lamp ghosts. We have 3 lights, and when you turn the light off, one of them will come on again. So, or if you have them on, it turns off. So we're always joking about the lamp goes. Yeah, I can't decide which way I like it better. Yeah, definitely don't like it that way. But I think I like it better like that. Yeah, my plan didn't go that well. So this is the tricky part about adding the glue, but then it's tricky even if you're putting the glue directly on the object, I imagine. I got some on both edges where I ripped off the paint. Alright, that will take a minute. And here I'm also, disguising the fact that I forgot to cut the bubble out on this base. What other ones do I have? Oh, I had where I put my sand on. That should be dry now. So I will put, since I have this super glue, let's just go ahead and use the super glue. Just a little more. One little separated bit. Oh, that's my tea leaves. So that gives it a bit more natural of a look. Like it doesn't look like you just have a thin layer of glue, or a layer of glue and then a thin layer of these little stones. Oops, I wanted some on there, but that was more than I wanted. Then I took them all. Once the super glue dries, I'll paint that. Now, in an ideal world, I would probably prime the stump, mostly because unsealed wood takes a lot of paint. Kuniko says, wait, I thought gluing your fingers together was an integral part of the hobby. I like to avoid it where I can, but then my problem is getting things to stay glued. So I haven't had a lot of gluing myself together stories. Wow, I didn't realize how messy my palette paper had gotten. But I guess we are almost time, so I won't go get a new one. I'll just work around what I have. Let's see. Let's use a brush. I don't care what happens to it. So if these were rocks on Mars, let's say they would be reddish, but maybe not that reddish. They would be reddish in a different way. Let's just try giving it a wash even. Giving it a wash might be enough. It will anger the super glue if it's not dry. But that's okay. So I'm just going to mix a simple wash on my palette instead of getting one where I wash things. I will test it like I did with the glaze. I think that's probably fine. I can see some of the texture there. Yeah, you can see it on the video even. We hope that's dry. So I got washed beyond where I wanted it. I'm just cleaning my brush off and get it off. And then once that dries, I think even that has helped kind of blend it in, you know, make it look like it's part of the surroundings a little more. But once that dries, I think a dry brush level or two would make it look like it was part of the same world as the other base. So I'll give that a minute and see if I can do that. But I'm going to show you guys the puzzle party. The puzzle party again, because I realized that I had my brightness turned down more than I thought when I did it the first time. There we are. Okay. So this is the elf wizard that I'm working on currently. And I hope to get him done tonight or tomorrow night. So it's interesting, just the way cameras and stuff work, I guess. This is not quite as pale as it looks. I mean, I want it to kind of look like that, but it looks more like light on the camera than it does in person. And I did kind of a star sapphire thing for the gem on his staff, but I made it green because I guess green is kind of his, you know, green's his magic color, so he's into it for his accents. I try to give each of them kind of a very distinct color schemes so that they, you know, for part of the working as standalone figures. This is the human rogue. And these are fun to paint. I enjoyed painting them a lot, other than, you know, trying to... So last week, I think Tuesday. So Tuesday, like sometime around lunch or something, Ron's all like, how far are you? And so part of the thing was, because I'm painting them as a party, I was trying to be efficient and make that as efficient as possible. So I was done stuff like I had left the stone bases. I hadn't painted them on the finished figure. So I started with this figure and I painted everything except the metal and the fire. And then I moved on to this guy and I painted everything except the metal. And then I moved on to the dwarf cleric that I don't have here right now. And then I thought, well, if I leave all that non-metallic metal to the end, I'm going to go crazy because this is a very tedious thing to paint. So I started working on the non-metallic metal. So 3 of them were like, this one was almost done. This guy was mostly done. And the cleric was mostly done. And Ron's all like, so what could you get me for a photograph by tomorrow at noon? And I'm like, information I could have used earlier, because I would have painted each one of them individually if that was as useful as having all of them ready at the same time. So I stayed up till 5 in the morning to get the 3 of them done. The wizard there was no way that he wasn't even done enough for me to like put him in the picture and tell Ron to just like do some kind of Photoshop. He's in the distance and it's darker there effect or something. Like he was so, I think I'd done just the blue parts of the robe. No, I'd done the robe and the cape, but I hadn't done his face. I hadn't done anything else. So I'm like, I can get you 3 by the deadline, by your deadline, or I could like try to finish this guy. And it made more sense to work on the other ones. So I don't know if he's going to show a picture. I'll probably have a picture of all of them by this Thursday. But that's what happened with that. But things happened that Ron didn't know about. It wasn't his fault either, really. But yeah, that was fun. That was super fun. Not really. I haven't painted like that or done anything intensely like that for a few years now. I did used to do that sometimes for contests. My preference now is to paint things well before a contest so that I can go back and review them and make sure I like them and stuff. This is the wag halter that is the mini of the month. This is the last day to get him as a free gift with purchase. But if you wait tomorrow, it's fine, because you just get that super cute leprechaun and his mushroom buddy. And then you can just buy this guy straight up. So that's my show and tell, and I'll just get the bases out so we can see where we are. We got further. Didn't quite get them all finished, but I still do a few more. It also helps if I zoom out so you can see all them all. The shininess is definitely working on the river water now. And there's the lava. Oh, hold on. I like to be nice to the OCD. Oh, thank you, Corporia. Thank you for plugging my kits. I mean, not like I get, a percentage of sales or anything, but I get satisfaction from knowing that people are enjoying. I don't know if I showed this one earlier. This one I was trying to paint like it was the moon, like a moonscape. And the shadows are very stark on the moon, so that's why it's kind of like the light's coming from this side. So it's hitting the edges, and after that, we have the moon and Mars, and then various terrestrial things. And these are all done with this is the lava base. That's one of the base inserts in Reaper's Base Boss 2 Kickstarter that is running now and until next week. I think it's done before I have my next show. Hi, Sentimental Minis. And oh, we got Raiders too. Hi Raiders. We're just finishing up, unfortunately. So I was been working on ways to use paint to fix things or change things, and I was using Reaper's Base Boss lava insert as an example. So you can add stuff, you can cut stuff away. I never did. That's true. I never did finish the snow one, which now looks like nothing because there's too much light. There's too much light or not enough. So this one I cut a part away and I glued it on top of this. And then I used various pastes and putties and stuff. So there's a previous episode, and that's up on Reaper's YouTube channel. And then this episode will be up on Reaper's YouTube channel soon. And I haven't decided what I'm going to do next week. I think I will wait at least 2 weeks to do the goblins so I can kind of try to get the word out. My current blog entry that's up is about ways to store your miniatures. So I did one like a month ago that was about ways to organize your miniatures, like whether you want to organize them by color and then value within that, or whether, how you use them. There's a few different things you can take into consideration for how to organize your miniatures. But then once you have them organized, how do you store them? And my current blog has suggestions for whether you want to store them on your desk, on the wall, in a drawer, or if you don't have a permanent setup or you want to be portable, different ways to try to store your miniatures. Pendrick says, use some titanium white on the moon one, lots of titanium dioxide on the moon, which contributes to the bright end of the starkness. I do mean paints, Kiriniko, thank you. Yes, it's how to store your paints, not how to store your miniatures. I did a previous one on how to travel with miniatures, which is kind of storage as well. But the current one is about storing your paints. And then there was one about organizing your paints. But I'll be putting up another blog tonight as well. So I think that's everything. Other than all white that we use pretty much has titanium in it. I don't know that very many acrylic paints are made with another white. You have to look out for it anyway. I don't think miniature paints are made with it. But what I should do, you're right, is get like my thick tube titanium white and really flop it on there. Kiriniko stores his dragons by color. So I have like 2 shelves of decorative dragons, and I did go through do I organize them by color? Do I organize them by... So I have the kind of the franchise and the non-franchise shelves. So like ones that are from something like the How to Train Your Dragon movies or Lord of the Rings or something like that. And then the ones that are just independents, I guess. All right, but I'm sure that I've bored you enough for one day, and Quindy will find you someone to raid that will hopefully not bore you. And thanks for hanging out with me and painting some faces. And hop on over to, if you are interested in the base insert idea, but you don't want to participate in that Kickstarter, like go in for $1 and make a comment, or let Reaper know some other way that you like that idea. Hugs back to Corporia, who I haven't seen in a while now. And I hope everyone has a great day. Oh, we're going to Phoenix Miniatures Art.